when I meet a new friend and they come over here to my place, I have this habit of showing them two YouTube videos. And because hanging out with me usually implies eventually watching YouTube videos with me, uh, there are these two that I especially like to show people if they know English or know English well enough. And both of these videos are from the Internet Historian, who is my favorite YouTuber. The first video is on the Fallout 76, and I usually like to preface the showing of this video by saying, whenever you do something wrong in your life, take comfort in the fact that you can never really mess up the way Bethesda messed up with the launch of Fallout 76 and the PR nightmares, multiple nightmares that resulted from it. The other video that I like to show is, again, by Internet Historian. It is his video on No Man's Sky. Now, this video is like an hour long, and I generally like to say that it is my favorite video on the entirety of YouTube, because and I guess this is a spoil, but the first half of the video is a nightmare very similar to the Fallout one, and the second part of the video is the redemption arc. How the people at Hello Games actually managed to redeem themselves and actually make the masterpiece that they were promising in the first place. And me, being a Christian, I like to see that video as a sort of a parable of repentance, of how you can pull yourself together and actually make something beautiful, regardless of the smithereens your life was beforehand. So where I'm going with all of this, I generally consider myself a gamer. I like to play video games. However, as I'm growing older, it's becoming increasingly more difficult for me to find joy in actual video games. There are a couple of that I still play, like Ancient Domains of Mystery, Adam, or Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3. Those are my all-time favorites. However, I've never played Dragon Age. However, if you've clicked on this video, you know which scene I'm about to play.
Thank you.
So, I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
Yes, it's that scene. And there are so many layers of what's wrong with this. And again, I did not play Dragon Age, but even I know that there is a major tonal shift in this scene, and again, probably many others in Dragon Age Veilguard as opposed to earlier installments. And that is why I want to rant with and at you a little bit, because why you should never pre-order. And it has to do with a lot of contemporary politics going around. There is an Orthodox YouTuber, which a lot of you are probably aware of, but even if you're not, Jonathan Peugeot, and he has this amazing video called Parasitic Storytelling. I highly suggest you watch this video in its entirety, but it speaks how these modern political trends, they do not create new stories to share their stories. They actually hijack the current franchises and everything. And that is why you have this sort of prolapse of transgenderism with very transgendered language in a medieval setting where, those things simply wouldn't be called like that. And again, this is a fantasy world. You can have transgender people there, but there are some things that are very important when it comes to these games, and it is suspension of suspension of belief, there is immersion, there is escapism. And when you see this transgender talk in a supposedly medieval setting, it destroys those things. And it is the same thing when we have like Black Little Mermaid from an IP where she, well, was white. I don't think that's the case with, for example, Princess and the Frog in the the feature cartoon, because okay, it's like a traditional fairy tale, but it was recontextualized as a modern tale in Saint Louis, and it worked. However, it does not really work it doesn't really work in the live action remake, and I made a separate video on it. But let me return to the original thing. People generally pre-order because they want to support a franchise. People rarely, well, it does not happen as often with completely original IPs. It does happen, of course, but it generally happens when there's a lot of hype, and this hype creates a lot of pressure. It causes a lot of pre-orders, and then you end up with, for example, you can end up with, for example, Cyberpunk 77. You can end up with No Man's Sky, and then they will build it up, or you might end up with Veilguard. And I know this is a trite thing to say, but Satan can never create something original. It can only corrupt what is good and holy. And sorry, but this is a prime example of it. I'm not really saying that like Dragon Age is this holy, great, good thing and so on. And I definitely believe that there could easily be some criticism of the original games. But there is this hijacking, What if I, for example, introduced the Holy Trinity into the Dragon Age franchise? It would be as equally as idiotic as this, There's this game, is it Dustborn? I believe it's called, and people were calling out its, is it? I think it's called Rustborn. But anyway, people were calling out the woke politics of the game, and that's fine, But it is an original game. If there's any positive thing said about the game, whose name sadly now eludes me, it's that it's an original IP, and you know what you're going to get. However, thanks to these committees, deciding to involve these modern politics into ancient settings of new games, when you clearly see that there is this diversity, equity, inclusion committee working to give you a Black Mermaid, you simply see that the modern view of races, sexuality is falling into in things that serve for us to escape, And again, there's nothing wrong with, being black or whatever, skin color or whatever race and so on. However, there are some, for us Christians, serious moral issues with the entire thing of transgenderism. And again, I'm not saying that that I'm calling for hate of somebody or anything, but we need to be aware that the thing that we pre-order may not align with what we believe, practice, preach, and so on. Even if like previous installments of a very well-established franchise were sort of neutral in that regard. And I have to say it like this, it does not serve the purpose of transgender people either. It is a bad example. It is bad writing. There could have been a myriad ways of you doing this, and you do it so poorly. Being a self-proclaimed biggest fan of liches, there is also a scene in Dragon Age where a wizard, Emmerich, becomes a lich, and the scene is very serious, and then there is a total tonal shift when he has to admit to his friends that he's become undead. And man, like it's like telling a bunch of brats that you're moving away. That's how surprisingly, they didn't even go the route of coming out. No, it's simply a bunch of brats. So yeah, sadly, we live in such a time, and again, this is something that everybody's aware of, that the IPs we are constantly being subjected to aren't made by people with passion, and when this happens, like again, Cyberpunk or No Man's Sky, it really shows. But a lot of times these IPs are made by committees, by metrics, and that is why they tend to ultimately fail, because they have this veneer of being polished, of being this or that, but it falls apart at the seams. So yeah, not a fan. Again, never pre-order. You, at best, I mean, I don't want to use too strong words here, but you might get a game or whatever you like. You might get something really crappy that will be built up by people who are driven by passion, or you might really get something that you absolutely hate. And again, this does not necessarily have to be politics. It might simply be, you know, crappy games. Pre-ordering is essentially a big gamble, and is it really worth it to, you know, invest your money? And sometimes these are like AAA titles. Does it really worth such a gamble? You know, sometimes, I mean, at least for me, $50 is a lot of money, like a lot. If it's not for you, okay, fine. Feel free to gamble it away. But I think that for a lot of us, we really should wait for reviews to come out. And of course, there will always be haters, but for a lot of us, simply wait. As we have a saying here in Serbia, a patient man is a saved man. Bye.